Welcome to this special episode of The Switch. My name is Jake Burleski, Nonprofit HR's Marketing and Communication Associate. Today we have an amazing episode for you, where we will hear from another excellent woman named to Nonprofit HR's 2023 Social Impact Women to Watch list. Each year during Women's History Month, Nonprofit HR proudly recognizes women across North America who have made significant contributions to nonprofits, associations, foundations, social enterprises, and the communities that they serve. This special series of The Switch features the 24 finalists named to this year's list due to their extraordinary leadership, unwavering dedication, and impactful achievements. In this episode, Lindsay Otto, our Marketing and Communication Associate for Editorial and Content, sits down with Mary Cortani, Founder and Executive Director of Operation Freedom Paws. Throughout the conversation, we'll hear more about Mary's stellar contributions to the sector. In 2010, a Marine approached Mary seeking assistance in acquiring a service dog to help him overcome anxiety disorders caused by combat hypervigilance. The multi-year waiting list for trained dogs from existing organizations were just one more source of frustration for that returning veteran. Mary knew that she could leverage her extensive dog training experience to teach that veteran to train his own service dog. She also realized there are thousands of dogs waiting for loving homes, and that many of them have the right temperament for service work. Those factors combined to form a strategy that would dramatically reduce the waiting time. The approach turned out to do so much more. It gave the veteran a sense of mission and purpose, and as the training proceeded, it provided a sense of accomplishment and renewed confidence as well. Thus was born the Operation Freedom Paws program, and for Mary, the alignment of her skill set, her capacity as a gifted leader, and her life purpose. You can find this recording at nonprofithr.com/The Switch, as well as anywhere you get your podcasts. Without further ado, here's Lindsay and Mary.
Hi, Mary. I'm so looking forward to chatting with you today. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
I want to congratulate you again for being named to Nonprofit HR's 2023 Social Impact Women to Watch list. At Nonprofit HR, we're really impressed by the work that you're doing at Operation Freedom Paws as the founder and executive director. And I would love it if first you could just introduce yourself to our audience and talk to us a bit about your organization and your mission.
Yes, my name is Mary Cortani. I'm the founder and executive director of Operation Freedom Paws, and we provide service dogs to veterans, first responders, children, and others with disability, and focusing a lot on the invisible wounds. Trauma is trauma. I started this in 2010 when I had just a regular dog training business because I had a major change in my life, just like getting out of the Army because I'm a veteran, years before. And transition is always tough when you have to reinvent yourself. I had been working in Silicon Valley, was an executive, and we all know that there's not a lot of female executive roles within corporations. So that life transition, I went into doing a dog training business when I got a call from a Marine. And he had been on a traditional service dogs list for a lot of years, 2-3 years. And that can be a lifetime for our veterans. And he was losing hope. And if you've ever spoken to somebody who's suicidal, you can even hear it coming across the phone where they just don't have any hope. And what he was doing as a last attempt was calling out to trainers to see if there would be any trainer willing to work with him to train a service dog for post-traumatic stress. At that time, I was familiar with mobility dogs, guide dogs, hadn't trained them. I've trained narcotics, explosive detection, apprehension, patrol, search and rescue. But the service dog world was new, as well as what issues our veterans were facing, because I had never used the veteran system to seek health care. And so I had to do a deep dive. I made him a promise that if he was willing to take a chance on me, that I would give it my very best to make sure that he had a service dog to help him. And that started Operation Freedom Paws. So understanding what issues they face, right? We don't charge. That was one of the other things he was coming across. He was told anything from $25,000 to $50,000 for somebody to train a dog. And that's ridiculous because they're fighting for the benefits and survival day to day. So here we are, 2011, we became a nonprofit and we started with that one Marine and we just added our 519th client last week, 70% of which are veterans and the other 30% is made up of first responders, children, and others. We take our dogs out of shelters and rescue groups. We select them. They go through a 30-step evaluation. We pair them together in a year-long program where we teach them to train the dog for their specific needs. And we do more than that because it's not just about training them to train the dog. It's including the family because there's secondary effects, spouses, children. We have a therapist available at every class, outside of class, so that if there's a crisis or they just need to talk to somebody, there's somebody available, because the appointments inside the VA take forever and you can lose somebody in that. We try and take a holistic approach. It's the old Chinese proverb, if I gave you a fish, you'd eat for a day, but if I teach you to fish, you'll eat for a lifetime. And that's what we want to do. We want to empower them to live the best life that they can, create new normals, and at the same time realize their new normal is no different than you and I going through every day with the life ups and downs and having to create a new normal, whether it's, a new job, moving to a new location, loss of a family member, sometimes just even learning to cope with what's going on in the world on a daily basis can cause us to create new normals and look at the world in a different way. But we want them to be the best that they can be and to enjoy life and not have to worry about taking things for granted like you and I do, of going to the grocery store or a movie theater or a concert, right? And spending time with their families and being out in the world. That's what Operation Freedom Paws is.
Wow. And is there something specific? I know you said you were a veteran yourself that drew you to this mission and to creating this organization in the social impact space in general.
A couple of things. Being a female veteran, we don't get a lot of recognition, and it took a long time before we could even say we were veterans. And women have served throughout the military, throughout our history, just in different roles and how they got recognized. But I don't see how, if you have a heart, that to get the type of call that I got from that Marine, you wouldn't want to make a difference, that you wouldn't want to try and save somebody's life. And, having worked with him, and he's thriving right now, by the way, he went back to school, his marriage got saved, he's out in the workforce. We helped advocate for those reasonable accommodations so that he could bring his dog to work with him. And I don't know, I guess because I am a veteran and I know what it was like to serve, I know what it's like to not be seen, right? Not be heard, and that trauma is trauma. And if we can do anything to, make somebody's life better, why wouldn't we? And sometimes you can make their day better by just smiling at them, saying hello, because we all go through stuff and we all have our ups and downs. But I was compelled, I did not realize that it truly was my calling. When I was in the military as a canine handler and a canine instructor, because that's where I learned to train dogs, and breaking ground there, being one of the first females in a male-dominated field inside of the military, it was a lot of stress and there was a lot going on. And I had to fight to get into that position. So I guess I pulled from that and didn't want somebody else to have to fight when there really wasn't a need. We just needed to step up and do something about it. And then I realized that when I was, training dogs and training people in the service, I really was at the pinnacle of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that this was what I was supposed to do. So I just kind of fell into it and stepped into it.
Wow. So tell me more about the unique qualities that have helped you build the organization and the community it has, and how have those qualities advanced your impact?
Oh my goodness. The first thing is the military. I went right out of high school into the military. It taught me discipline, commitment, confidence, which taught me that I was stubborn and that I wasn't going to take no for an answer. And pulling on that, the ability to communicate in different ways, that tones can have a meaning, to be able to give instruction. Went through the master instructor program to be a master canine instructor. That, and then the transition back into the non-military world, having to navigate that and the challenges, working 2-3 jobs while I figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And by the way, I've decided I want to be a kid. It's so much simpler. But, getting a certificate in electronics when there was no such thing as IT, starting on the manufacturing floor at Prime, working my way up into R&D, getting my computer engineering degree, and then coming back to California because my mom's health was taking a turn for the worst, and working in Silicon Valley and working my way up through the ranks to become an executive for a startup. Taking all of that business experience really comes into play, because even though we're a nonprofit, we're all competing for the dollars out there for whatever person's passion is there, the same donor pool. And how do you tell the story without, for me, exploiting our clients, because they're vulnerable vulnerable enough, and we don't want to exploit them and take advantage of that any more than we want to exploit or take advantage of our staff. And being able to tell that story and the impact and the power of a dog to help heal has been a challenge, because it's easy to sell a widget, right, and tell the story about the widget and how it's going to make your everyday life better. But selling the story of the impact of the dog can be a little bit more difficult, because we have a tendency to kind of judge the book by its cover before understanding what's underneath it. And we shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be judging. We should be accepting and realize that everyone, I don't care what walk of life, has their own unique challenges. And just because you don't see it doesn't mean that it's not there. So I pulled from all of that: business experience, military experience, and then my own volunteer stuff that I did with like Habitat for Humanity and Second Harvest Food Bank and those kind of things. So it just all came together.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Looking to integrate talent into your mission strategic plan? During annual strategic planning, organizations often overlook what talent is needed to meet their goals. Partner with Nonprofit HR for your organization's talent management needs. We offer HR outsourcing and project-based consulting, including strategy and advisory, retained search, total rewards, and equity, diversity, inclusion, and justice. We also offer customized trainings for your workforce. Join the many social impact organizations that have trusted Nonprofit HR to help them increase mission impact through their people. Visit nonprofithr.com.
So having all of that experience, how do you bring others along or mobilize others, like your employees, your community members, toward that shared vision and goal that you have?
I'm still learning about that. Here we are, 2010, and we're in 2023. So it's a journey all the time to learn how to do that. Our staff, because they witness training, they meet our clients and their families, they feel the impact. They see the changes. They see from day one when they come in and get matched with the dog and the journey over the course of time. They have a involvement because we pull our dogs out of shelters and rescue groups prior to the matching. They're involved in getting some basic manners on and, taking the dogs for walks and feeding them. So they feel it and they experience it. As for others, giving presentations, trying to explain simple things like we all have a spatial bubble, every single one of us. And sometimes they're a large bubble, sometimes they're a small bubble, can be influenced by experiences, culture, all kinds of different stuff. But when explaining it and demonstrating it, when we first meet somebody, we do an arm's length handshake. As we become more comfortable, we'll go to a half arm handshake. And then as we become even more comfortable, we go into the hug, right? And that's in your space, like as much as you can get. And we feel it. And I think we felt it even more during COVID because we were forced to isolate. We were forced to stay those 6 feet apart, but we weren't realizing what it was. Some people looked at it as an inconvenience. Others looked at it like, no, stay away, right? I don't want to be exposed to anything. And so all those different emotions and reactions added to our reactions as to what was going on and how it impacted us, or the isolation and not being able to see family or go to the hospitals and all of the traumas that came along with that and how it impacted our lives. Well, those are the same kind of things that our clients, especially the veterans and the first responders, go through, whether it's post-traumatic stress, whether it's military sexual trauma within the first responder community. Enough exposure changes the brain. And I think for a lot of folks, even if they didn't get COVID, just the fact that we transitioned from an in-workplace environment to a virtual environment, and just like we're doing with this Zoom call, before COVID, it was barely there, right? And now it's, Teams and Zoom and everything. It's our new way of communicating, and having the ability to turn off the video and just have a picture and hide behind that screen, which ties into social media. It just adds to it. So that human contact, either seeking it out or saying, no, I don't want it, has changed everything. And so pulling that in to tell the story, because we're all impacted by it. But thank goodness our clients, the only thing we ask of them, because we do not charge, is that when they're willing and able to give us a testimonial to use, maybe give us their story so we can use it in our newsletters, and just continuing to remind people that, our veterans should not be forgotten, that our first responders, what they go through, whether it's law enforcement, EMS, EMT, firefighters, they see stuff that the average person doesn't see. And it's not the sensational stuff the media covers. And it has a profound impact. And the more you're exposed, the more it changes the brain. And that's been scientifically proven. So just pulling all of it to tell the story, but learning how to do it better.
Stories are incredibly, incredibly impactful. And you obviously are speaking to that right now. And I'm curious, as a leader, what's the most important thing you've learned in this space?
Most important thing I've learned, I'm human. I don't have all the answers, but I can at least know where to go get them and do the research. But we all have our good days and our bad days. There's nothing wrong with saying I'm sorry if you mess up. If you make a bad decision, make another decision to fix it. It's not necessarily the end of the world, but sometimes those decisions can be life-saving. And just to value what everybody brings to the table. We may not always agree on everything, and we need the differences of opinion. We need the hard questions asked in order for us to grow, to learn, and to make things better.
What is your people management philosophy and engaging mission-driven talent in your staff? Or what role have you seen people management play in advancing your mission?
Oh my goodness. First off, don't micromanage. Empower them to be able to do their jobs. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be times that you need to step in and kind of change direction, because there's always mission creep, right? You don't want mission creep. You want to stay focused on the mission. But empowering them, I think the greatest compliment, and I've learned this over my lifetime in my career, is the greatest compliment a manager can ever get is when their staff goes well beyond where they ever were, right? By mentoring, by coaching, by encouraging, giving them the opportunities. When they exceed anything you've been able to do and go on and achieve even greater things, that's the greatest thing a manager can ever do. And I've been fortunate in my lifetime to have a couple of really great mentors that did exactly that, that encouraged me to reach for the moon and settle on nothing less, and to continue to learn and grow. We need to do that.
Since this award is in honor of Women's History Month, I would love for you to share if you have any advice to give those looking to inspire women in the same way that you have.
Oh my goodness. If I were to give advice to women, it's number one, learn what QTIP means. It stands for quit taking it personal. So QTIP, quit taking it personal. And to know when it's okay to take no for an answer and when it's okay to push back. But don't lose yourself with what others think you should be. And again, my lifetime and my career, I don't fit a mold. And that has, worked for me well because of positions I've picked. It's also caused numerous headaches, but learning to not take it personal. And when you believe you're right, state your case, have your facts. It's okay to be emotional. And when they tell you that you're emotional, say, would you rather that it be dull and dry, or would you rather the emotion convey the message? Because females come from a totally different place. And I've seen this and learned this throughout my career, is if we don't continue to have empathy and caring and compassion in whatever position that we hold, we become cold and callous, and it becomes a game of power. And we can hold our own power while still owning those amazing qualities and attributes. We can take our power back by being true to ourselves and not being somebody that somebody else wants.
That's powerful advice. And so as we wrap up our time together here, my last question is, what is your greatest hope for your mission? And how do you see yourself bringing that hope to fruition for your organization?
Greatest hope for the mission is that we save lives. And that, for me, this can be a little bit selfish, but to know that I made the world a better place, even if it was one person, but that we don't lose sight of that our veterans, even though they didn't necessarily serve in combat or they did serve in combat, or our first responders, that they shouldn't be forgotten, and that there are other modalities besides medication that can help with the unseen and the invisible wounds, that we stop the number of suicides that occur every day, and that maybe because of that, we'll also not be quite as divided as a country and as a community. And those things hopefully drive the mission forward, and we match more dogs and see people live the best lives that they can live, because that's what it's all about, living the best life we can live, no matter what our limitations are.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. And do you have any other parting words that you would like to leave with our audience today?
Just believe. A couple of years ago, I wrote a kid's book with another veteran, and it's called 4 Paws, 2 Feet, 1 Team. And when I sign the book, it's called Dream, Dare to Believe, and Find Your Superpower. So hidden within all of us is a superpower. It could be something as simple as writing an unbelievable letter or a text, or making somebody's day better because you acknowledge them. There's so many different ways for your superpower to come out, but find your superpower, be the best that you can be, and don't change just because somebody else says you should. Be willing to listen, go out and make the world a better place.
Wonderful. I love that. Thank you so much, Mary, for sharing your story, for your time today. Very, very grateful. I'm incredibly inspired by all that you've shared, and I know our audience will be as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Again, it's an honor if it gets the word out there and helps us to be able to achieve our mission by getting those donations and those awareness. And maybe somebody who is out there who has a family member that is struggling knows to reach out for help. We're one form of help, but there's a lot of other forms of help too.
Well, that's our show for today. The thing I found most inspiring during this episode was hearing how Mary is able to make an impact in the lives of veterans by combining her own experience being a female veteran, as well as previously being an executive in Silicon Valley, with her passion for training dogs and helping others. Once again, we thank you for listening to The Switch. If you're looking for more episodes of The Switch, visit nonprofithr.com/The Switch, where you can access recordings and resources to help your organization maximize its greatest asset, your people.